From unique ideas to exploding batteries and some bizarre, stupid designs. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane, but not for a good reason. We're about to dive deep into the world of tech fails with our list of the top 10 worst smartphone failures in the last 25 years. So buckle up, grab your popcorn, and let's dive in. Alright, kicking off our list is the Amazon Fire Phone. Released in 2014, it was Amazon's big break into the smartphone market. They even got Gary Busey for commercials. But it wasn't meant to be. High price, limited apps, and a forked Android version. And dynamic perspective, gimmicky and battery draining. The Fire Phone flopped, and Amazon quickly pulled the plug. Coming in at number 9 is the Facebook phone, also known as the HTC First. This phone launched in 2013 and was basically Facebook's attempt to take over your entire mobile experience. The problem was, nobody really asked for it. The HTC First ran a heavily modified version of Android with Facebook deeply integrated into its core. This meant your newsfeed, messages, and notifications were front and center all the time. While this might sound appealing to some, it ultimately limited the phone's functionality and alienated users who didn't want their lives revolving around Facebook. Plus, the phone itself wasn't anything to write home about. It had mediocre specs, a forgettable design, and it just didn't offer anything that other Android phones at the time couldn't do better. The Facebook phone was a commercial flop, proving that even the biggest social media giant can't force its way into the hardware game. At number 8, we have the LG G5, which launched in 2016. Now, LG deserves some credit for trying to innovate with this phone. The G5 featured a modular design, allowing you to swap out the bottom chin for different attachments, like a camera grip or a high-fidelity audio DAC. On paper, this sounded amazing. Who wouldn't want a phone that could transform into a professional camera or a portable music player? But the execution left a lot to be desired. The modules themselves were clunky and difficult to swap out, and the phone often felt disjointed and fragile. Plus, the software experience was buggy, and the battery life was subpar. The LG G5 was a classic case of ambition outweighing execution. It's a shame because the idea had potential, but it ultimately ended up being a forgettable blip in LG's smartphone history. The next phone is the original brick, literally. Launched in 2011, number 7 on our list is the HTC Thunderbolt. This phone was one of the first devices to launch with 4G LTE connectivity, which sounds impressive, but it came at a cost. The Thunderbolt was notorious for its abysmal battery life. Seriously, you were lucky to get a few hours of use out of this thing before it needed a recharge. And if you actually tried to use that 4G connection, forget about it. You could practically watch the battery percentage drain in real time, but the battery wasn't the only issue. The Thunderbolt was also plagued by random reboots, software glitches, and a bulky, uninspired design. It felt like a first-generation product rushed to market to capitalize on the hype surrounding 4G. The HTC Thunderbolt serves as a reminder that sometimes being first to market doesn't always guarantee success. Next, phone did social networking in 2010, before it was cool. Coming in at number 6 is the Microsoft Kin. This phone was supposed to be Microsoft's answer to the growing popularity of social media among young adults. It was marketed as a device that would keep you connected to your friends and family 24/7. The problem was, it was released in 2010, just a year after the iPhone 3GS and a time when Android was rapidly gaining traction. The Kin's software felt clunky and outdated compared to its competitors, and its app selection was severely limited. It didn't even have a web browser. In a world where smartphones were becoming increasingly essential for communication and entertainment, the Kin felt like a step backward. Microsoft pulled the plug on the Kin just 2 months after its release, making it one of the shortest-lived smartphone lines in history. The next phone was not just a failure, but probably the most famous phone disaster. Number 5 on our list is the infamous Samsung Galaxy Note 7 of 2016. This phone needs no introduction. It was the phone that literally exploded onto the scene, and I'm not talking about its popularity. The Note 7 was plagued by a serious battery defect that caused some units to overheat, catch fire, and even explode. Samsung initially tried to recall and replace the affected devices, but the problem persisted, forcing them to issue a second recall and ultimately discontinue the Note 7 altogether. The Note 7 fiasco was a PR nightmare for Samsung, costing them billions of dollars in lost sales and irreparable damage to their brand reputation. It's a stark reminder that even the biggest tech giants can make mistakes, and when it comes to smartphone safety, there's no room for error. Coming in at number 4 is the BlackBerry Storm, launched in 2008. This phone was supposed to be BlackBerry's answer to the iPhone, a sleek and powerful device that would appeal to both business professionals and everyday consumers. However, it ended up being a major disappointment. The Storm's biggest downfall was its clickable touchscreen. BlackBerry was so focused on replicating the tactile feedback of a physical keyboard that they overlooked the importance of a smooth and responsive touchscreen experience. The result was a clunky and frustrating user interface that felt laggy and imprecise. The Storm also suffered from poor battery life, a subpar camera, and a lackluster app selection. It was a major misstep for BlackBerry, and it marked the beginning of the company's decline in the smartphone market. The next phone was the king of delays, which finally launched in 2011. At number 3, we have the Motorola Droid Bionic. This phone was hyped up to be a powerhouse, a device that would push the boundaries of what a smartphone could do. However, it ended up being a major letdown. The Bionic was plagued by delays, pushing back its release date multiple times. By the time it finally hit the market, it felt outdated and underwhelming. It had a dull and washed-out screen, a slow and sluggish camera, and disappointing battery life. The design was also uninspired, with a bulky form factor and a cheap-feeling plastic construction. The Motorola Droid Bionic was a classic case of overpromising and under-delivering. It failed to live up to the hype, and it quickly faded into obscurity. The next phone was too busy playing games. Coming in at number 2 is the Nokia N-Gage. This phone launched in 2003, tried to do too much, and failed on all fronts. Marketed as a hybrid gaming console and smartphone, it was neither. The design was awkward and uncomfortable. Calls had to be made sideways, which looked ridiculous. The gaming controls were poorly placed and uncomfortable. It was a commercial flop, symbolizing Nokia's struggles in the smartphone market. The next and last phone on the list is bizarre, to say the least. It was launched in 2008, and today, nobody remembers it. And that phone is the Toshiba G450. This phone was so bizarre, so poorly designed, and so utterly useless that it's almost comical. The G450 featured a strange triangular design with a circular keypad and a tiny, low-resolution screen. It was nearly impossible to use as a regular phone, and its feature set was practically non-existent. It didn't even have a camera. The Toshiba G450 was a complete and utter failure, a phone that seemed to have been designed with no regard for usability or common sense. It's a phone that time forgot, and for good reason. That's all, folks. But seriously, don't buy these phones. Well, there you have it, our list of the top 10 worst smartphones to ever exist. It's been a wild ride through the world of tech fails, from exploding batteries to confusing designs and everything in between. These phones serve as a reminder that even the biggest tech giants can make mistakes, and that innovation doesn't always equal success. But hey, at least we can learn from these mistakes and appreciate how far smartphones have come since then. Thanks for watching our countdown of the top 10 worst smartphones to ever exist. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more content. See you in the next one.